the music of Morton Feldman. I don't know all of you are familiar with Morton Feldman, and the music for that he composes for John Cage. So we thought it's good to have it on while I'm talking about that. And just the reason that I chose these three together, because we know that John Cage is influenced by Marcel Duchamp, and Morton Feldman influenced by John Cage, his music. And also for me, just like Morton Feldman says that his music before he knows John Cage is totally different after he met John Cage. So for me also poetry, my poetry is before John Cage and after John Cage. So I totally, and then these three, when you read them together, when you read John Cage, you can understand Marcel Duchamp better. When you read Morton Feldman, you can understand John Cage better. They're just like complementing, and they're just looking at the same concept from different angles. And something that they shared in their artistic vision, I just bullet point what they just shared together. The language of imagination, ambiguity, uncertainty, and also I have accent. Humor in process, geometrical word, three-dimensional thinking, elastic reality, doubt in perception, motion in stability, experiencing uncertainty, make sense of nonsense, mastery over their artistic material, freedom in action, not freedom from action, and let go of result. And what is called in Marcel Duchamp ready-made, I found it in a description that Shelley said, not about the ready-made, but about the poetry, that lifts the veil from the hidden beauty of the word and makes familiar things as if they were not familiar. And John Cage says the same thing when you compare this together about his music, that if nonsense is found intolerable, think of my work as music, which is, Arnold Schoenberg used to say, a question of repetition and variation. Variation itself being a form of repetition in which some things are changed and others not. From the preface to anarchy. And when we talk about the anarchy that John Cage talks about, is to think about that we can do whatever we want with the music that he composed. But then we come to some performers that perform his music. One of them is Grete Sultan, that she's a very well-known pianist that worked closely with John Cage. And she said, people think he don't mind how the performer put the music together. But that is not at all true. He was very precise about his instructions. The idea that you can do whatever you want with his music is not right. Even the dynamics, which look to be free, will come out a certain way that feels right. And then one of the things that, for example, Marcel Duchamp did, she just like totally mess up with our perception. They just like what is as Shelley said, is familiar to make it unfamiliar. One of the things just he made is, it calls wordplay, like strangles strangers, ruin urine, anemic cinema. And then when we just think about the perception, you can flip between alternate percept, and it is great fun when it flips spontaneously. It feels like an amusing practical joke has been played on you. In truth, ambiguity is the rule rather than the exception in perception. It is almost as though perception involves selecting the one hallucination that best matches sensory input. And if you look at some of the just Feldman titles, if you don't know Feldman as a composer, you think he was a painter, because he's just like so visually driven artist, and he composed lots of music about the visual artists like Rothko, Jack Pollock, and also Philip Guston. For example, some of the titles that he chose: vertical thoughts, light patterns in a chromatic field, cripple symmetry, Coptic light. And when we come to the Cage poetry, you can see that how they interconnected different arts together. They're just like, when you talk about John Cage as a composer, he's not just a composer, he's also a visual artist. It's just in the Cage mezzostics, in an art form in between words of sound, language, and perception that produces paradox. And paradoxes in which the same information may lead to two contradictory conclusions, give us pleasure and torment at the same time. They are a source of endless fascination and frustration, whether they involve philosophy, science, or perception. They brings about puzzles at the same time, effect, and actually they just like such puzzles have the same effect on a scientist or philosopher or artist as the smell of burning rubber on an engineer. They create an irresistible urge to find the cause. That in the mezzostics poems that he wrote, he located mezzo-strings text, structured along a string of capital letters, running down the middle. The strings cannot be heard when the poem is read aloud, and are on the edge of invisibility on the page. He took into account both breadth and breadth, that is both musical elements and possibilities for meanings. Just when I say this, like some of my poems that just influenced by, I read two of my poems that influenced, just like kind of wordplay and just the conceptual thinking. One of them is just playing with just Marcel Proust in the search of lost time. The title of it is In Search of Lost Time. A piece of rubble bickers with the sun. Sunflower's neck bends over a heretic chameleon. Dolly's clock mills on the canvas. Trash makes a dog pile behind the dam. Candied jalapenos burst the tongue. Time speeds up sweetly. I'm bilingual now, for real. Yet sweeping the gray hair with broom and dustpan. I cherish honeycomb whenever I weep like a bee or brush my wet hair. But I don't know why I don't weep anymore. By the way, where is the comb to groom my hair? Woof, woof. And the other one is just like unreal revelation. Robust words lost, loose. I should write to continue, continuation. From length to width, from depth to surface, from center to fringe. In a yard without years, circling round me, to memory. Sitting in a trendy restaurant, counting the numbers on the bill and assess the asses. Nostradamus wrote down the donor le prophétise, indigested history, threw up the future in a yolky prediction, a paradise per the dice. And then the last piece that I wrote is just like a fictional conversation that I imagined between John Cage and Morton Feldman. There is nothing real in it, it's just what I made up. My ideas from their words. And the title is a quote from Morton Feldman. It's not rhythm by duration. A Duchampian conversation between John Cage and Morton Feldman. John Cage, because John Cage called Morton Feldman Morty. You know Morty? I want to compose a piece with no notation. The atonal era is over. It's the time of an anotal composition with an exact time frame and no notation. A 4 minutes, 33 seconds of silence or soundlessness. What do you think? Feldman, it's funny. Because I was thinking the opposite of removing the time element. Just precise notation. Who cares about the time after all? I want to go on forever, if I can. A music with no conclusion. I just composed a string quartet lasting 6 hours, 7 minutes, and 7 seconds. Imagine. Its score is 124 pages with a slow tempo of 63 to 66 beats per minute. So one page may last as little as about half minute or as much as 7 minutes. Laughing, haha. See, John, we are both similar. We both don't give a shit about our audiences. Poor fellows. We're both good at fucking with their patients. John Cage, maybe Morty. But the problem is what people see in silence or slow tempo is a static laziness, while there are dynamic forces in motion which move everything together in an interconnected process, absolute abstract forces. Feldman, for me that force is duration, a floating state which is very internal to the statement of each instance. It's an active element of continuity that is simply ends without any climax or resolution. And continuity without particular sense of anticipation or destination. Cage, I was listening to your piece, Vertical Thoughts, the other day. I was thinking that the architecture of ancient language was vertical. Each word sank down. Look at today. We lost the vertical quality of the ancient tongue. Every word speeds onto the next. Everything now moves horizontally in the line of flight. Language today is sharp and aggressive. Each word comes from more preceding word than from silence, and moves on more to the next word in front rather than into the silence. A short pause in the room. Feldman, whispering, sounds in space becoming hearing, entered ears, plants, herbs, and trees. Those who had ears heard. Back to his normal tone. We need a music for listening. My music is to suspend as much as possible ideas, purpose, and historical context to achieve a hearing that is the material heard. This suspension doesn't mean a disregard for the artistic context or intention, but it means appreciating the music as an art form through the practice of listening rather than as a limited description of music as a performance. John Cage. Yeah. Listening is liberating because it establishes the continuity of the finite and infinite dimension of our existence. Feldman. You know, John, that I'm not a spiritual person, right? They don't care about infinity and that shit. But I'm always thinking, why patterns? Why rhythm? Why should we buy our distorted memories? Huh? Why a systematic form? I want to go beyond. I want to reach a total formlessness, a vast space of imagination, an indefinite world of possibilities. Cage. This is the exact reason I want to compose a silent piece, you see? The quality of silence is this vast space. It's without border or form, and it's intensely active. For Feldman. John, you know I'm a visual composer. For you, silence is like a single point with the potential to grow. And for me, duration is like two extended parallel lines. You know, in new geometry, I think they call it projective geometry or something like that. Two lines always meet in a single point. We are the other end of the same spectrum. Cage. And I think this single point is nothing but living in between. It's a point of suspension. It's a state of being non-state, neither or nor. It's nothingness, because there is no such a thing as silence, Morty. Okay. Thank you. That's